Hello, my name is Michael Miramontes, and I'm about to take you through a journey where I review the film Ice Age. Specifically, I'm going to review how accurate the blockbuster educational film is, and we're going to take a deep dive into the exposition into the ancient human interactions depicted in the children's movie and the potential lies that hide beneath the surface. So what is the Ice Age exactly? Well, the actual term refers to periods of extremely cold climates in its history in which much of the planet was covered in glaciers, but that's not really what we're here to talk about. In this case, it's actually, as the Rotten Tomatoes description puts it, an educational movie that came out in 2002 about a woolly mammoth, a saber-toothed tiger, a sloth, and a human. May sound like an odd circle of friends, but that's what Ice Age is all about. Unlikely pals who come together when the going gets rough. Okay, so the movie is an epic yet educational documentary thriller that depicts the harsh realities of life during the Ice Age. It's probably a good educational tool for our kids to learn about times in this important period in history. Or is it? How accurate really is a movie that has received a 77% approval rating on Rotten Tomatoes and received over $380 million in box office profits? Hello, my name is Michael Miramontes. I am a self-proclaimed smart guy, scientist, movie lover, and doctor soon to be. So I'm going to take you through the question, is the Ice Age historically accurate, or has it been plaguing the minds of kids and citizens with false information for years? Specifically, is the portrayal of the tribe an accurate representation of ancient hominin interactions, intelligence, and behavior during this time period? So for my analysis of the tribe creatures in the movie, we're going to look at three areas. First is whether they actually exhibit modern human behavior. The second is if the time and place is historically accurate as it is in the movie. And three, we're going to look at the tribe characteristics and makeup and see if that is also accurate. So the first question we really want to have answered is, who are the tribe creatures? So it can be assumed that the tribe creatures depicted in the movie are actually Homo sapiens, and that much we know of based on a few things throughout the movie, including this line that Diego the saber-toothed tiger says at 11 minutes and 48 seconds. Let's show that human what happens when he messes with sabers. Likewise, the premise of the movie is our crew taking care of Ice Age baby, meaning that it is an altricial species, just like that of modern humans, as opposed to other prehistoric primates. So we have confirmation in the movie that we are observing humans, but the next question that comes then is, are these humans ones that exhibit modern behavior? Okay, well, what is modern behavior? Well, modern behavior is thought of as when our hominin ancestors started to act like us, and it can be thought of as encapsulating these characteristics. Having creative and innovative culture, language, art, religious beliefs, and complex technologies. And in particular, the prevalence of symbols being used as a means to communicate are often thought of to reflect modern behavior. So do we see this appear in the human tribe in Ice Age? Well, yes, we do, asterisk. So fulfilling the first definition, we see evidence of creative and innovative culture, language, art, religious beliefs, and complex technologies multiple times throughout the film, notably in a few scenes shown in the right. So, in Figure 1a, this depicts stone tools such as an axe and a spear that is used by the tribe. This is an example of complex technology. Figure 1b shows some cave art depicted found by Manny and the crew, created by presumably a human tribe. So this is another example that fulfills our definition and constitutes art and potentially culture. So here we have examples of our first definition of modern behavior being shown in the movie. So Len, what about the second definition? Are symbols found in this movie as well? Well, yes. So to understand if symbols are present in the movie, we must first define symbols as anthropologists understand it. So symbols are thought to be something that could be verbal as well as fully developed syntactical language, or visual as art and personal adornment. So as understood in Henselwood et al. 2002 and other studies, symbols can include artifacts like beads as well as ochre and ostrich eggshells with geometrically engraved patterns. So where do we see examples of this in the movie? So symbols appear as the beads on a necklace and as personal adornment art, as shown in these two figures right here. And so in Figure 2a on the left, the tribe leader wearing clothing with geometric engravings constitutes a personal adornment symbol. And then Figure 2b, the necklace worn by the tribe leader's partner. This is a necklace that constitutes shells and carved stones on it surrounded by beads, which could be considered art and obviously has beads on it, also fulfilling that definition. And other personal artifacts on it, like such as a little stone engraving of his baby, which is another example of just art that is found in the movie. So just looking at these criteria and the definitions shown before, found from studies from anthropologists, these are actually humans that exhibit modern behavior. So we got complex technologies, check, culture, check, art, check, symbols, check, and creativity, check. So we have humans that exhibit modern behavior. But the next question I wanted to really be answered is, what is the time and place taken in this movie? So historically, would it make sense for modern behavior to be depicted in the time and place that the movie takes place? But I guess that's actually a loaded question for a few reasons. So first, we really need to understand, when did modern behavior come to be? And there's actually a lot of debate on this. And as one would expect, there really isn't a clear, solid starting point. So based on an article by Sarah Words in Nature in 2012, there are a few ways to identify modern behavior. Here are a few of the important time points. So if you look at just symbolism as a starting point for modern behavior, it only actually appears after 100,000 years ago, based off these studies above. And however, symbols are only consistently found after 50,000 years ago. So even though there are two different time points here, we can look at another definition. So we could look maybe at modern behavior being a result of genetic mutation of neural organization that took place in Africa 50,000 years ago as well, based off another study. And then another idea that we could use is just, we could say modern behavior is just came with the rise of anatomically modern humans, which occurred about 200,000 years ago. So while we have a few different definitions here and a few different type points, we could just argue that modern behavior appeared after 50,000 BC, filling almost all the options. So if we're going with the safe bet and assuming that modern behavior occurred after 50,000 years ago, then we next want to know, well, is there an ice age that coincides with this? So there have been 5 major ice ages, with the last one being titled the Quaternary Ice Age, which began 2.6 million years ago and is, interestingly, still considered ongoing. However, if we looked at the fluctuations in this period, according to the incredibly credible source History.com, the most recent glaciation period, often simply known as the Ice Age, reached peak conditions some 18,000 years ago before giving way to the interglacial Holocene epoch 11,700 years ago. So if we assume that this was the most recent Ice Age period, then this would be well after the 50,000 year threshold that we put for the appearance of modern behavior. But what about the where? Nowhere in the movie does it specifically say where it takes place. But after some careful sleuthing, I think that I've finally answered the decade-old question that has been on everyone's mind: where does the blockbuster movie Ice Age take place? So now I present my evidence. Number 1, the geyser. So careful and attentive observers of the movie will notice one peculiar line in the movie. At about 39 minutes and 39 seconds, Sid the Sloth is laying down on a hole in the ground, and as he relaxes, suddenly a stream of hot air blasts upwards and shoots him in the sky. As Manny and Diego watch, Manny utters the words, "Sure is faithful." What does he mean by that, you might ask? That line is actually incredibly important because he actually is referring to the Old Faithful geyser in Yellowstone National Park. Old Faithful is the name of Yellowstone National Park's most famous geyser, which appears in none other than Wyoming, the United States. Is this a stretch? Maybe. Maybe they did not intend for this at all. Maybe it was just supposed to be a little joke, and it was not actually supposed to indicate any location in the movie. But then I kept watching. Evidence number 2, supervolcano. So later on in the movie, around 53 minutes and 50 seconds, as the crew is walking across ice, the ground begins to give way as lava starts to shoot from under them. Eventually a crater forms as lava, several hundred meters below, melts all the ice, and the crew almost dies. Sorry for the spoiler. And as you can see to the right, there is the figure during the scene of this happening. So why is this important? Well, some may know this, but Yellowstone National Park is actually on top of a giant supervolcano. And so, my second piece of evidence, the supervolcano eruption, Yellowstone. So this eruption scene just further supports the hypothesis that the movie could have taken place in what will become Wyoming, United States. The eruption and formation of the lava lake could correspond to an eruption of the supervolcano below Yellowstone. However, I hear some of you saying that a super eruption hasn't happened since 70,000 years ago, so it would definitely break this timeline. But here's what I would say to that. The U.S. Geological Survey notes that at Yellowstone, every few thousand years, a hydrothermal explosion will form a crater as much as a few hundred meters across. Hear that? Every few thousand years, a smaller explosion will happen that forms a crater. So the eruption depicted in the previous photo matches this description of only appearing a few hundred meters across. So the theory is still supported. So there you have it. Based off those pieces of evidence, I can now conclude the time and place of Ice Age. The time is sometime likely between 18,000 years ago to 11,700 years ago, based off modern behavior, and also corresponding to the Ice Age times. And the location is in modern-day Wyoming, United States. So now the next following question is, were there modern humans in North America around this time? Also yes. So according to a study by Bennett et al., there is evidence of human footprints in the Americas as early as 23,000 years ago. So to recap, we can confirm the validity of modern human behavior being present at the time and place depicted in the movie. So the last thing I really wanted to answer and look at is the tribe characteristics and makeup. So does the movie accurately depict how tribal humans would have behaved and interacted at this time? So let's look at this makeup of the tribe. So interestingly, throughout the movie, the tribe is only shown as 5 men. It is worth noting that there is actually a female in the early on in the movie. It is the wife of the leader of the pack, but the wife dies or disappears at the beginning. It's not really known, leaving the baby. And yeah, rest in peace, dead wife. So the reason this is actually interesting is because a study by Dunbar and Associates found that the ideal community size of a hunter-gatherer society is actually 50, 150, or 500, all of which are much greater than the 5 or 6 people shown in the movie. Likewise, a community would not only survive consisting of men, as one could obviously infer, but this still doesn't rule out the possibility of one existing, of course, since this is only one snippet of this actual tribe. It's just worth noting that this is unlikely to actually consist and survive for a long period of time. But, you know, this is just worth noting. But now we look at other characteristics of the tribe, specifically the huts that were shown, the weapons that were shown, and the clothing that were worn, and you want to answer, were these also historically accurate given the time period? So when were evidence of tribe huts actually found? So evidence of tents made from animal skins in the Americas were actually found as late as 14,700 BC. So therefore it's much later than what we think it could be, even as early as 11,700, like we said. So this means that it is still considered accurate to the movie. What about stone weapons? So stone weapons have actually been observed for a long period of time, evident by a study investigating the adhesion used to fixate stone onto tools found in 65,000 BC. So this also makes this theory accurate, and stone weapons could have been used by these tribe hunters. But what about the clothing made from animal skin? Was it widespread at the time? So it's known at the time that humans actually wore animal skin to keep warm, which is especially important during the freezing climates of the Ice Age. So this also means that it is accurate. So those 3 characteristics that we looked at for the tribe were actually very accurate. So of everything gone over so far, does that mean that this movie is actually accurate? Is Ice Age a fairly good educational film? We went over the makeup of the tribe, we went over the time and place of the movie, and confirmed that it is accurate. We went over the tools that were used, the huts that were made of, the clothing that was worn, and we confirmed that everything seems to be pretty accurate. There's not a lot of consistency shown in the movie. I mean, right? Well, not quite. There actually is still one major inconsistency, one problem that I noticed, and it's actually a very large one. And this is the asterisk that I referred to earlier. So throughout the entire movie, there is one thing that is missing, one aspect that I was carefully watching for, carefully listening for, and it never came. So modern behavior, we defined earlier, was noted as having creative and innovative culture, language, art, religious beliefs, and complex technologies. So can you guess what's missing? Something important about modern behavior that we have not mentioned yet in this presentation. It's actually language. Nowhere in Ice Age the movie is there language spoken by the human tribe. Yes, you heard that correctly. There are only grunts and body gestures that are used throughout the film, but not spoken language. Although the origins of human language vary wildly, estimates put it anywhere from 150,000 years ago to 100,000 years ago. So if language had existed for at least 80,000 years before a movie takes place, why hadn't our humans used it yet? One could argue that, maybe they didn't speak because the movie didn't have the capacity for language, or maybe they just didn't show it in the film, or maybe the humans just chose not to speak in the certain scenes that were shown. But I'm just going to ignore that part because that actually doesn't make sense. We're going to go off the idea that they just actually don't have language at the time. So there you have it. One major inconsistency in the movie. Humans during the Ice Age movie should have had language at this point. So therefore, I deem the Ice Age film #inaccurate. I demand that Disney remove all sources of the Ice Age film to prevent further spread of misinformation. So in conclusion, While the Ice Age movie aims to be a strictly educational, serious expose into the nature of modern human behavior in the pre-interglacial Holocene epoch period, and it succeeds on depicting human behavior such as art, culture, technology, as well as being accurate in the historical timeline and place, it fails in one key area of modern human behavior, that being language. I look forward to seeing Disney's quick response to removing this excuse of an educational documentary and issuing an official apology for allowing such a hoax to exist for as long as it has. And here are my references. As you can see, there's a lot of information used, and more on this next slide. So with all these sources, you can clearly tell that I'm very honest and very informed, and Disney is very much in the wrong here. So thank you so much for listening. Like I said, my name is Michael Miramontes, future doctor, and I look forward to seeing Ice Age removed from every major streaming platform. Thank you.